The cosmic assassins were renowned throughout the universe for their unmatched effectiveness and power. Centuries of conquest had established their reputation, and each mission was carried out precisely and without fail. Simply a band of hired guns, they represented terror and had a wide-ranging impact to the galaxy's farthest regions, guaranteeing that there would be no planets and no civilizations dared to challenge their authority. And it was thought that their origin was mysterious. They arose from the remains of a once dominant empire, secretly developing their abilities before coming out as the ultimate force. They carried with them the belief that the best weapon they had been taught from birth was fearlessness. Members were emotionally deprived, trained to view weakness as a weakness, and prepared to eliminate any danger. Their techniques were unreservedly brutal, but they guaranteed outcomes. As a warning to others, planets that defied their demands were turned to ashes, and the instruments of their domination were as powerful as their training. Advanced weaponry that can break down targets at the molecular levels were their norm, and they were hidden from view and from technological scans by their cloaking gear. Since their spacecraft were state-of-the-art and equipped with hyperspeed, they would have the advantage in any conflict. Their missions were swift and effective thanks to engines and weaponry that could destroy entire fleet, and left no survivor to oppose their power. Their reliance on dread extended beyond their behavior to destroy anyone not on guard duty there. In order to give terror a sinister appearance, each assassin wore a uniform, masks that obscured individuality and gave off a frigid aura combined with a sleek suit that absorbed light. Those who came into contact with them saw them as an emotionless presence that was neither human nor extraterrestrial. Despite their intimidating image, they were untouchable and unbeatable, and their strategies were predictable. They would strike swiftly and unexpectedly, leaving no space for counterattacks, using the concept of overwhelming might. Centuries of success, with no history of failure, gave rise to this confidence. However, their overconfidence prevented them from seeing the prospect of failure because they thought their reputation alone was sufficient to guarantee that any enemy opposition to capitulation was uncommon. And when it did occur, in order to provide a clear message, it was smashed with tremendous force. The cosmic assassins also kept a strict mandate. At the pinnacle of the hierarchy was their mysterious commander, who was only identified by his title. The leader's identity was kept a secret, which increased the level of fear they inspired. The assassins worked with military precision under their leadership. Commands were strict, and failure was penalized with repercussions so serious that even the most courageous of them proceed with caution. Their effectiveness on the battlefield was increased by this organization, which enabled them to operate as a single, cohesive unit. Prior to any physical altercation, they made sure that psychological manipulation was an additional layer of their domination. They utilized propaganda to propagate tales of their savagery, but their targets were already mentally defeated. Their ability to evoke terror, they would permit rumors of their approaching presence to spread, By the time they hit the majority of resistance, the target's time to imagine the worst was already broken. But their biggest weakness throughout their entire plan was their reliance on terror, focused on their reputation and prospered on the conviction that no one could oppose them. This dependence produced a blind area. Their training placed an emphasis on strength, leaving them unprepared for circumstances in which fear did not prevail. And fear but gave little opportunity for flexibility in a cosmos as big and inconceivable as that explained by terror. History or fantasy? The desire to control victims was a greater impediment than their ability to control victims themselves. Untarnished, no force had ever emerged with the strength or cunning to reveal their vulnerability. Their supremacy was so complete that they started to believe they were unbeatable. This conceit was deeply embedded in their culture, saw themselves as an unstoppable force, a necessary order in a chaotic galaxy, and their legacy, rather than just beings, was strengthened by their deeds, while entire civilizations were exterminated because they dared to oppose others, enslaved their inhabitants, deprived them of their resources, and the galactic captive. In addition to conquering, assassins changed the galaxy's definition of power. They weren't only soldiers, were a force that, simply by existing, created terror that influenced the destiny of worlds, penetrated the galaxy's civilization, and spread beyond the battlefield. Legends of their exploits were handed down as cautionary tales, and children were told about the cosmic leaders, used hushed language when discussing them in order to keep the assassins compliant, knowing that the galaxy not only feared them, but also venerated them as inevitable, even though uttering their name could summon their fury. Force of nature. Yet the assassins became complacent as a result of this respect. They ceased challenging their tactics, plans, and goals, acting under the presumption that nobody could rebel against them because of their conceit, which prevented them from seeing that they failed to detect the seeds of resistance silently sprouting in places that might one day challenge their rule. The cosmic assassins were a group of shadows waiting for the ideal opportunity to awaken. As a result of their own achievements, their legacy was based on the idea that the best weapon was fear. They had no cause to doubt that view for generations. Until the galaxy is huge, and history has demonstrated that no matter how strong a force is, when and to whom they would fall was the question, not whether they were actually invincible. The galaxy had never seen a Flash's figure like Green Beret, who represented one of Earth's most powerful military units. Unlike the Galactic, the Green Beret was the epitome of flexibility, accuracy, and superior technology. Unmatched training in strategic thinking and the incapacity to convert even the slightest advantage into a decisive advantage. On Earth, their training was a demanding procedure that required both mental and physical stamina. Green Berets were chosen after a rigorous selection procedure that evaluated their physical prowess, as well as those who passed demonstrated psychological fortitude and problem-solving abilities. Undergoing years of instruction in a variety of subjects, such as survival and unconventional warfare, intelligence collection, and sabotage, this readiness made sure they could function well in any setting, from lush jungles to barren deserts. And one of their distinguishing characteristics is their ability to quickly adjust to changing conditions. Characteristics was their capacity to research and take advantage of their enemies. In contrast to the cosmic Green Beret, assassins were excellent at using direct attacks and intimidation. They carefully collected data about their adversaries in intelligence and reconnaissance, looking for trends, vulnerabilities, and blind spots. This tactical technique enabled them to eliminate threats with little resources, frequently accomplishing seemingly unachievable goals. The Green Beret. They were trained to use whatever tools were available and had a mastery of improvisation, turning corporate statement into the corporate alternative angle that the Galactic Assembly devised potent weapons or solutions. When up against foes with superior technology, but the Galactic Assassins depended on the Green Berets depended on ingenuity to turn their advanced weaponry and equipment into weaknesses, offered them a competitive advantage in circumstances when others may collapse. Their mental toughness was just as important as their physical abilities. Green Berets were taught to endure high levels of stress and stay focused in the most trying situations. Their mental toughness allowed them to function for prolonged periods of time in harsh settings, making choices that needed to be made quickly and precisely so they could use endurance to outlast and outthink their rivals. And tenacity as weapons in and of itself. Their deployment of covert Green Berets was another crucial element. Worked with such secrecy that they were practically undetectable. They were experts in infiltration to detection up to the point at which they decided to use this capacity to travel covertly, and unheard frequently enabled them to eliminate dangers before the adversary even recognized they were being attacked. It was a clear in contrast to the proclivity of the Galactic Assassins to assert their dominance through overt shows of force. Even while individual skill, Green Beret also recognized the value of collaboration. They received training as part of small, highly effective teams where each member contributed special talents to the goal with a focus on cooperation, and their ability to help one another made them fierce adversaries who could precisely coordinate intricate actions. Training promoted unity and trust, enabling them to operate effectively even in the most tumultuous circumstances when, along with their abilities, the Green Berets brought their philosophy on the galactic stage. Earth's military past was rich in teachings on flexibility and resilience, which had molded them, encountered innumerable difficulties such as internal strife and environmental crises, and had adapted to survive by. This legacy of inventiveness and tenacity was ingrained in the Green Beret strategy for fighting where preparation for battle started long before the first conflict, and where cunning and ingenuity were valued over physical power. Shot was fired. They viewed the conflict as a riddle that needed to be answered by carefully examining each needed to develop a thorough strategy, which involved researching the technological strategies of the Galactic Assassin and psychological techniques. By comprehending how the killers ran, the Green Beret was able to predict their actions and create counter-strategies. This careful planning was essential to their. In order to take on a force as formidable as the Cosmic Assassins, the Green Berets' inventiveness included using. Although they lacked the sophisticated weapons that the Cosmic Assassins possessed, they were proficient in guiding and effectively managing the combat vehicles. They blended military technology from Earth with materials taken from innovative and efficient hybrid systems were being created by alien sources. They were able to close the technology gap thanks to their creativity, transforming anticipated drawbacks into surprising strengths. Their strategy for fighting was precise and meticulous, and they gave priority to efficiency, avoiding pointless conflicts and concentrating on accomplishing particular goals. This disciplined strategy maximized impact while minimizing danger, because each action was planned, created to thwart the enemy's strategies and provide doors for triumph. The Green Berets' capacity to control their surroundings and leave their enemies the capacity to control them. Their ability to remain composed and concentrated under duress was essential to their success, allowing them to carry out intricate internal warfare and employed tactics with precision. That the greatest strength of the Galactic Assassins was their reputation for invincibility. Vulnerability by highlighting the assassin's flaws and proving that the demon could defeat the Green Beret weakened their sense of anxiety. This change in perspective had a significant effect. It had an impact not just on the assassins, but also on the people they were trying to subjugate, motivating resistance and reducing the assassins' hold on authority during their conflicts with the Green Beret, a group of galactic assassins relying on a mix of precision strikes and covert tactics. They, whenever feasible, steer clear of direct conflict in favor of taking use of the assassins' overconfidence by focusing on their main vulnerabilities and interfering with their business activities. The Green Beret forced the capacity of assassins to respond and change the balance of power by dictating the conditions of engagement was crucial in their achievements. Their deeds also demonstrated the distinction between bravery and fearlessness. Whereas the Green Beret recognized that fear was a normal reaction and that cosmic assassins were trained to repress it, could be controlled and managed. This knowledge enabled them to make well-informed choices that balanced risk and prize in a manner that the assassins were unable to. Their bravery stemmed from their readiness and faith in their ability to survive. The Green Beret's existence in the galaxy is not a source of worry, was a disruptive force that questioned the status quo, proving that with the correct approach and perseverance, even the strongest may be vanquished and their deeds revealed. As the cosmic assassins' shortcomings become more apparent, they are forced to face failure for the first time. It was a watershed moment that changed the balance of power in the conflict between the galactic assassins and the Green Beret in the galaxy, developed as a conflict between the galactic assassins' methods and ideologies. Operated with brute force, using their well-established reputation and enormous force to intimidate and subdue the Galactics. In contrast, Green Beret depended on accuracy, flexibility, and the capacity too. This fundamental difference influenced their encounters to exploit weaknesses, changing what the Galactic assassins turned what they thought would be a routine operation into a protracted and unpredictable conflict. The first notable change happened when the Green Beret showed that they could interfere with the assassins' well-established strategies. The assassins have long prospered by using psychological warfare to gain control, making sure that prior to any physical contact, targets were discouraged. Yet the Green Berets shown no signs of fear. Without psychological control, this lack of terror compromised one of the assassins' most potent weapons, had to rely only on their technological prowess and fighting abilities, which is where the Green Berets' inventiveness really came into play. Since the assassins were trained to adhere to rigid procedures, flexibility became a defining characteristic in the struggle, and methods that had worked for them for generations. These were rigorous yet effective in the majority of situations. The Green Beret, on the other hand, flourished on fluidity. By being dependable and by examining the assassins' patterns, they were able to pinpoint weaknesses and precisely exploit them, adjust to changing conditions, and use well-considered, gradually weakened replies to counter the assassins' movements. The assassin's assurance, the Green Beret also employed a special strategy to secure the Galactic assassins' resource management was mostly dependent on their sophisticated technology and vast supply. Chainstat believed these resources couldn't be disrupted. Hence, the Green Beret's strategy focused on these problems. It aimed at posing logistical difficulties for the assassins by disrupting their supply routes, and the Green Beret used technology blind spots to put the assassins in predicaments where their superior skymucks. This strategic focus emphasized the assassins' over-alignment with their tools, making technology less relevant, and revealed their lack of backup plans. Psychological warfare was crucial in tipping the scales of power, but the Green Beret showed how the cosmic assassins had long utilized terror to subjugate their opponents, the efficiency of an alternative psychological trick they used to make the assassins mistrust their method. When the Green Beret made a deliberate move, it reminded them to doubt their own invincibility, that the killers were not immune, and this decline in trust had a domino effect. Undermining the Green Beret's emphasis on precision was another crucial element of the battle, as was the assassins' unity and morale. To accomplish their goals, the cosmic assassins used overwhelming force, and the Green Beret operated with surgical precision. They put efficiency first, concentrating on particular targets. This strategy reduced needless NER risks while optimizing the disruption that would have the biggest effect. It also brought to light the sharp differences between the two forces, one depending on physical force and the assassin's external effectiveness, and the other on calculated precision. The assassin's arrogance turned out to be a major weakness. Their expectation of triumph in every conflict was conditioned by centuries of control, and this conceit made them blind. They misjudged the Green Beret's skills, believing that their abilities would be a significant obstacle. Superior numbers and cutting-edge technology would ensure success. But this error in judgment permitted the Green Beret to take advantage of their laziness and turn their advantages into weaknesses. The significance of Galactic offices' building protocols and the unpredictability of the Galactic assassins' operations grew more apparent. The structure of foreseeable strategies, presuming that their adversaries would be too overpowered to adequately react, this pattern was broken by Green Beret, who added a degree of unpredictableness that the assassins were unable to deal with. By the Green Beret's continuous strategy changes and ability to keep the assassins off balance interfered with their ability to coordinate and carry out their plans. The assassins had traditionally relied on their hierarchical structure, but they began to crumble when the Green Beret techniques came into play to preserve efficiency and order. But the Green Beret's injection of chaos revealed this Coordination breakdown and flaws in their chain of command made it even more difficult for the assassin to adapt, giving the Green Beret the chance to take advantage of its capacity to predict the attack itself. They believed that by closely observing and analyzing the assassin's behavior, they were able to spot patterns and misrepresentations in its form, leveraging a tested increase in overload rates and combat compared to non-officers in numbers like that. The Green Beret was able to remain ahead of the game and oppose the Assassin's actions before they could gather steam served as an example of the value of forethought and wisdom. Highlighting how crucial it is to comprehend one's opponent, the change in the balance of power also had wider effects outside of the direct battle. The Galactic assassins standing as an invincible force had also inspired a continent. Being a pillar of their power, the Green Berets' triumph in dispelling this myth generated shockwaves. It showed that even the most powerful people in the galaxy might be weak, which made people wonder. The assassin's authority was undermined by this cascading impact, which also caused an unexpected interaction. While Green Beret's element in the setting that was favorable for resistance was the Green Beret's tenacity, whereas the assassins were tactical and precise, the Green Beret endurance proved to be an unexpected test for them, since they were used to winning quickly. This endurance made it possible to function in extended interactions while sustaining discipline and concentrate for extended periods of time. What was supposed to be a quick encounter turned into a protracted conflict as they outlasted the assassins. They put the assassins' determination to the test and revealed how unprepared they were for this new kind of foe. Ultimately proved to be their downfall. They had established a legacy of dominance and terror, but these instruments were failed to counter the Green Berets' planned approach, forcing the assassins to face a reality they had long disregarded, their strategies, which, despite their strength, were not perfect. Realization signaled the beginning of the end of their rule and a turning point in the fight. Pete Stark stood between the two groups, and informing the Galactic assassins was an antiquated kind of authority. In contrast to one that was founded on terror and brute force, the Green Beret represented a more contemporary and flexible strategy that gave priority to intelligence strategy. And this clash of beliefs highlighted the inescapability of change as the traditional methods of dominance were replaced by a new definition of power via flexibility. The fight was not just a conflict between physical might, but a contest of ideas and tactics. It brought to light the flaws in arrogance and inflexibility while demonstrating the value of planning and creativity. In the last conflict between the Green Beret and the Galactic assassins was the result of everything, not just a test of might. That had characterized the conflict, where strategies of fortitude and readiness came together to ascertain the Green Beret's outcome after studying the assassins, was now in a position to deal the assassins a crushing blow after taking advantage of their flaws and overconfidence. Petrichors faced the prospect of defeat for the first time in their history, a situation for which they were unprepared. Green Beret's strategy for this latter phase of the war was characterized by accuracy and meticulous preparation, since they recognized that despite their declining morale, the assassins continued to be a powerful force that the assassins could access. Because of their established dominance and access to advanced weapons, any mistake may have disastrous consequences. Green Beret concentrated on reducing risks and optimizing the results of their activities. This meticulous balancing act, one of the most important components of the Green Beret's tactics, was assertiveness and prudence. The assassins had a rigid command structure, and their objective was to undermine it. Hierarchy in which their leader used unquestionable authority to give commands to the lower tiers by focusing on important obligations. The Green Beret confused those in this chain of command and interfered with the assassins' ability to effectively coordinate. This tactic further undermined their capacity to react in unison to dangers, exacerbating their vulnerabilities. The Green Beret also made use of their knowledge of the assassins' technological dependence. While the Green Beret became a crutch for the assassins, since their advanced tools had given them an advantage in innumerable battles. approach aimed at countering these advantages by taking advantage of weaknesses in their technological defenses. In using non-traditional techniques, the Green Beret produced a large portion of the assassin weaponry. Ineffectual, forcing the assassins to depend on their own fighting prowess, which, although excellent, was insufficient to destroy the Green Beret's ability to adapt, and their training in psychological warfare have remained crucial. The assassins' doubts had already been raised by their acts, but they grew stronger as the last showdown drew near. The assassins, who had previously maintained their confidence without question, were now struggling to accept that their invincibility was a myth. The Green Beret took advantage of it by using strategies that further damaged the assassins' morale. Every well-planned maneuver in the Little Wind served as a reminder that the assassins were no longer in charge. Their greatest weakness, their incapacity to adjust, was their overconfidence, which had been their hallmark. The Green Beret's unorthodox methods made them more exposed because they had depended on the same techniques for centuries, presuming that the Green Boos would continue to rule without opposition. Capacity to take advantage of this rigidity demonstrated the assassins' lack of readiness for a genuinely flexible opponent. Their lack of adaptability proved to be a major contributing factor to their demise. In contrast, Green Beret's creativity and tenacity were evident as they tackled the conflict with a mentality that prioritized flexibility and endurance, where the assassins struggled under extended training. The Green Berets flourished in the face of opposition because their training had equipped them for exactly his type of situation would be a protracted conflict in which the victor would be determined by discipline and determination. This capacity to remain composed and focused under duress played a crucial role in shifting the balance of the Green Beret's capacity for on-the-fly innovation, further highlighted the value of flexibility. Every interaction with the assassins yielded fresh perspectives that the Green Beret promptly incorporated into their methods. This ongoing evolution enabled them to remain ahead of the assassins' counterattacks before their ability to adapt quickly allowed them to gain traction, which contrasted sharply with the assassins' strict following established procedures. The Green Beret also showed a keen understanding of how to knowing when to press for an advantage and when to retreat, and they made sure that their actions were typically driven by definite course efficiency, enabling them to keep control of the engagement by controlling the parameters and pace of the conflict. They compelled the assassins into a reactive role, depriving them of the initiative on which they had previously depended. Another crucial element they had anticipated the Green Beret to have was their inability to foresee its tenacity, succumb under the pressure of their superior numbers and technology when their tactics failed to do so. Dismantled the Green Beret's resistance to the assassins' attempts and pushed them into uncharted. At the height of the fight, the territory where their lack of adaptability became more obvious. Assassins were put on the defensive in a situation they had never been in before. This change in dynamics was a serious incapacity to stop the Green Beret's relentless pressure, and strategic ingenuity retake power signaled the start of their demise as their effectiveness and unity were deteriorating under the strain of persistent opposition. The Green Beret triumph was not only the consequence of superior tactics, but also a victory evidence of their preparation and tenacity. As they had started the battle as the underdog against an opponent with decades of experience, but with proper preparation and flexibility, by unwavering will, they managed to defeat the assassins' advantages and revealed their vulnerabilities. This victory served as both a defeat for the assassins and an example of the lasting worth of tenacity and inventiveness. The impact of this conflict went well beyond the immediate result of the once unstoppable cosmic assassins. When force was shown to be capable, this revelation had significant ramifications for the Green Berets. Victory influenced others to change the galaxy's power dynamics, questioned the current quo, causing a chain reaction that made the assassins less powerful and gave them more confidence. The Green Berets' activities highlighted a wider struggle for resistance throughout the galaxy, teaching on the nature of power. The assassins' dependence on dominance and terror had led to their complacency, whereas the Green Berets' emphasis on strategy and flexibility had enabled them to flourish in the face of hardship. This contrast demonstrated brute force shortcomings as well as the resilience of innovation and tenacity. The confrontation's aftermath was a watershed in the galaxy's history, and the Galactic Assassins, their reputation, which had been their greatest asset, was now a reduced force, previously associated with fear and control, was destroyed. The Green Beret victory not only represented the end of their power, but also the beginning of a new paradigm in which resilience and adaptability to this change were used to gauge strength rather than just power. It was not just a triumph for the Green Beret in terms of power dynamics, but also a triumph for the values they upheld. Success showed that ingenuity, resiliency, and determination could defeat even the most powerful forces. Resolved, it served as a reminder that real strength comes from the capacity to overcome obstacles rather than from the lack of them. Above it, the conflict's aftermath brought about a significant change in the galaxy's perspective of the cosmic assassin's strength and tenacity, who once created a void in the established order by defeating those who personified invincibility. Was not just a military defeat, it also represented the weakness of even the most powerful forces. The Green Beret triumph triggered a revolution throughout the galaxy and questioned long-standing notions of authority based on fear. The assassins' reputation collapsing was the first and most noticeable effect. Their supremacy had been maintained not just by force, but also by the belief that they were impervious, which had enabled them to conquer whole civilizations with little opposition. And the legend of their perceived invincibility was broken, and they no longer possessed the psychological edge that had hitherto found its foundation. This signaled the start of their downfall, as their fear-based control over others started to. The assassins' downfall had ripple effects that went beyond their organization and sparked opposition throughout civilizations throughout the galaxy, particularly those that had been living under the shadow of their oppression. The Green Berets' triumph demonstrated that even the strongest troops might be opposed and vanquished, which gave them more confidence. Downtrodden people, resulting in rebellions and the restoration of independence in numerous areas throughout the galaxy, witnessed a transformation as, following the assassins' murder, latent resistance movements discovered new hope. Failure also demonstrated the shortcomings of a system that relied entirely on force and intimidation, which the assassins had relied on their technological dominance and reputation for a long time. But their lack of flexibility left them open to a strategically clever foe such as the Green Beret. This change in perception led to a wider wave of acceptance of leadership. Leaders throughout the galaxy started to reevaluate how authority should be used, to raise concerns about the viability of fear-based government and the significance of developing AD ability and resilience. The Green Beret victory highlighted the importance of preparatory plan and the capacity to, under pressure, innovations showed that ingenuity and resiliency could overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Despite overwhelming odds, this lesson struck a chord with leaders and those opposing injustice. In order to defend their own lands, strategists believed that power was not only about supremacy, but also about instrumentality. Another important result of adaptability's establishment was its influence on a new generation of leaders and thinkers. Power was redistributed during the battle, and as the assassins' numbers declined, new coalitions and alliances with historically underrepresented populations and cultures started to emerge, occupying the space left by the assassins, aimed to create more cooperative and balanced systems based on the lessons learned from the assassins' demise. Although there were still difficulties, this time of transition gave the Green Beret a sense of hope and rejuvenation. Beyond their immediate acts, their contribution to remaking the galaxy made them a symbol of tenacity and resistance. Their tale is becoming well known as an illustration of what can be accomplished with perseverance and creativity. Their deeds' symbolic significance was just as significant as the military triumph they achieved. A change in culture where resilience, strategic thinking, and adaptability are valued more highly than the hero's story did for the rest of the franchise. The same thing applies to well-known in other Star Wars movies. Their respective changes made within the Star Wars movies, their respective changes made within the Star Wars series, and intimidation. Prevailing forces, it emphasized the perils of overconfidence and complacency, showing that even this lesson struck a deep chord, causing the most established powers to fall if they didn't adjust. Reassessment of plans and priorities by other powerful groups, the focus started to change from keep things under control by using fear to create systems that can withstand difficulties and adjust to changes. Economically, the demise of the assassins upended long-standing exploitation schemes that their activities had relied on taking resources from planets that were conquered, causing imbalances that left many areas in poverty, which, as they deteriorated, these systems started to fall apart, creating chances for more equitable economic arrangements. Despite its difficulties, transition gave formerly exploited civilizations a chance to reclaim. The loss also demonstrated the strength of their ability to manage their resources and strive for sustainable development. The Green Beret's psychological fortitude in fending off the assassin's scare techniques showed the significance of mental toughness in conquering obstacles that appear impossible. This realization became a foundation of new educational and training programs throughout the galaxy that emphasize the importance of readiness, and the change brought about by the Green Berets' activities also resulted in emotional fortitude in the face of hardship. Developments in tactics and technology, the techniques employed to thwart the assassins served as a model for new methods of conflict resolution and defense are being inspired by innovation. Era of strategic and technological evolution represented the expanding realization that flexibility and success in the ever-evolving galaxy of the Green Beret depended heavily on inventiveness. Their humility and emphasis on the greater good, in contrast to the assassins, whose acts were in the Green Beret strategy, which was motivated by power and self-interest, was based on the defense of others and the pursuit of justice. This disparity reaffirmed the notion that real power did not reside in frightening people, but by encouraging resiliency and optimism. Their tale became a unifying one that healed divisions and fostering cooperation between formerly disparate parties. The assassin's capture ultimately represented a pivotal moment in the galaxy's history, marking the end of a period characterized by dominance and terror, and the start of a new era marked by cooperation, adaptability, and resilience. Rebuilding and creating a more equitable system presented many difficulties, but the lessons learned from the progress was made possible by conflict. The Green Beret victory was not only was it a military victory, but it also changed the dynamics of power and sparked resistance, bringing about significant change, and proved through their deeds the timeless worth of flexibility and inventiveness. Left a legacy that went much beyond the battlefield, changing the meaning of the galaxy and its course. To be resilient, the change they brought about was evidence of the strength of fortitude and the possibility of even the simplest factor that can bring about long-lasting change.